In this video presentation, we are presenting you a parts kit for Pedelec, which is an electric power assisted bicycle regulated by Europe EN 15194 standard. Ride Pedelecs is a way to save the earth. A pedelec is a bicycle where the rider's pedaling is assisted by a small electric motor, thus is a type of low-power e-bike. Pedelecs include an electronic controller which cuts power to the motor when a rider is not pedaling or when a certain speed, usually 25 km per hour, is reached. Pedelecs are useful for people who ride in hilly area or in strong headwind. While a pedelec can be any type of bicycle, a pedelec city bike is very common. A conventional bicycle can be converted to a pedelec with the addition of necessary parts, that is motor, battery, sensor, and controller, etc. This is what we are introducing here, a DIY parts kit for a pedelec. Pedelecs provide various advantages over conventional bicycle. On the mobility, hilly areas and the elderly can cycle easier using a pedelec. As far as the speed, distance is covered more quickly as the average speed is greater. On the effort, alternatively, the same speeds can be reached with less effort, particularly when going uphill or against the wind. So bicycle commuting in work clothes is less problematic. Achieve greater range, less fatigue, higher speeds, and greater distance. The disadvantages of the pedelec: the price, the electricity recharging cost, and the replacement of battery, higher risk of theft, and the pedelec's higher weight. This DIY parts kit consists of following: a controller, a sensor, and a hub motor. The installation instruction for each part will be demoed in the following few pages. Since they are DIY parts, people can purchase them online and install them at home by themselves. Please note that lacing a hub motor requires experience and patience. Get a motor complete wheel is what we suggest for online purchase. Of course, this DIY parts kit also includes the following parts: a battery and its case, and a panel for display. The following shows the image of each part for pedelec: a controller, a sensor, a hub motor, the battery and its case, a panel, a motor complete wheel. On this page, we'll show the brand names comparison among pedelecs, the motor spec, the battery capacity, the system weight, the installation difficulty, the frame design, the operation method, the endurance, Parts installation video guide. Page 10 installation for battery case. Page 11 installation for controller. Page 12 installation for sensor. Page 13 installation for motor complete wheel. Page 14 installation for panel. Page 15 installation for final check. Page 16 guide to wheel lacing with a hub motor. In this video, we will show the procedure for installing the battery case with a rear rack. Let's remove bolts from existing rear rack on both the rear wheel axle and the seat stay. Next, insert the battery case into the rear rack, then tighten the case with 4 given bolts. Now let's mount this rear rack with battery case on the bike. We simply tighten the 2 bolts on each side of the rear wheel axle. Now let's tighten 1 rack stay on the left side of the rack with 1 bolt. Then tighten the other end of the rack stay on the left side of the seat stay with another bolt. Let's do the same thing on the right side of the rack with the other piece of the rack stay. Now we have the battery case with the rear rack installed. The last step is to insert the battery into the case and lock the battery with the key clockwise. Switch the power switch to turn on the battery. Now it's power on. In this video, we will show the procedure for installing the controller in the battery case. Let's connect the controller to the battery first, then plug the red wire to the red wire connector of the battery. Do the same way for the black wire and connector as well. Next, push the controller upward to the storage box of the battery case as shown. Then put on the black cover to seal the controller. There are 2 nuts required on black cover to secure the controller box. Let's tighten them one at a time. Now the installation of the controller is completed. In this video, we will show the procedure for installing the sensor. Please prepare the necessary tool required for the installation as shown. First, let's measure the thickness of the sensor. It should have 7 mm. This means that the gap between the crank and the bottom bracket should have larger than 7 mm for sandwich the sensor. Let's remove the crank first. Use the hex driver to unscrew the cap inside the crank hole. Then use the crank tool to uninstall the crank. Next, let's install the sensor. You can see the teeth of the lock ring on the bottom bracket and the matching gear tools on the sensor surface. Let's hold the sensor with the cable downward, then place and match the teeth on the sensor with the locking ring on the bottom bracket. Next, let's mount back the crank and tie the cap of the crank hole. Now connect the connector of the sensor cable to the connector of the controller. For the motor installation of a pedelec bike, it has two kinds. 1. Direct wheel lacing with a hub motor. 2. Replace the front wheel with a motor complete wheel. Here we are going to introducing the second method, replacing the front wheel with a motor complete wheel. First, let's unlock the caliper brake, then unscrew screws of the front wheel on each side of the dropout and pull out the front wheel. Now, let's mount the motor complete wheel to the dropout. Push the wheel axle into both sides of each dropout. Then mount the screw to each side of the dropout to lock the wheel axle. Now let's lock the caliper brake. This will complete the installation of a motor complete wheel. In this video, we will show the procedure for installing the panel display. Let's pick up the panel and put on the handlebar. Tie the tie wrap on the back side of the panel with the given bolt and nut. Next, let's connect the given extension cable to connect between the panel and the controller. The procedure for the panel installation is completed. In this video, we will show the procedure for cables connections among parts. Both the panel and the hub motor require extended cables to connect to the controller. Let's pick up the red connector head of the panel cable and plug into the red connector head of the panel with arrow to arrow. We will tie the cable with the motor cable together later. Now let's do the same way to connect the connector of the motor cable. Now we have all cables solid ready at the controller side. Let's match the color of the connectors and plug in the connector respectively. After tie cable to the fork, the top tube, and the C-stay, let's check the panel cable connection or the power switch here. Now let's check hub motor cable connection. Please avoid cable get stuck at the head tube. Here, both cables are tied together at the head tube. Run along the top tube and stop at the C-stay. For sensor cable, it runs along the C tube and stops at the C stay. Check all connectors connection to the controller connector correctly. Finally, let's plug in the battery and then lock the battery with the key by turning it clockwise. Press on the power switch on the battery. The system is ready to run. Let's turn on the power switch on the panel. Try to pedal and then the motor should run accordingly. In this video, we are introducing wheel lacing with a hub. Although the video is using a hub instead of a hub motor, the lacing procedure is the same. Now is the time to assemble the wheel. A manual task instructed to specialized bicycle technicians, as it requires a level of craftsmanship no machine can perform. The technician inserts spoke into each slot of a carbon fiber and an aluminum flange part of the hub at the center of the wheel. Once every spoke is in its respective spoke seat, as it's called, the sandwich them with a locking ring. Now for the ring end of the spokes, the next technician places a small steel plug inside a spoke nipple to make it magnetic. Then she puts the nipple into the ring and using a magnet, draws it to a spoke hole, then through the hole toward the inside of the wheel. Then she removes the steel plug and inserts the free end of a spoke into the nipple. She repeats the procedure for each spoke hole. This is known as lacing the wheel. The next technician holds each spoke steady while tightening its nipple with a spoke wrench. Tightening the nipple straightens the spoke, the process of perfectly aligning the wheel by straightening every spoke. It's called truing the wheel. This gauge tells them when the wheel is finally trued. For quality control assurance, this robotic machine inspects each spoke and makes any necessary tensioning adjustment. Now, the introduction to wheel lacing with a hub is completed. Thank you for your attention. We have just finished the presentation.